He conquered Egypt at 24. He defeated the greatest empire in history at 25. He reached India at 28. He was the most powerful man alive. And then one day, he sat down by a river and wept, not because he lost, but because there was nothing left to conquer. This is the story of the moment Alexander the Great broke, and what it tells us about power, ambition, and the price of greatness. Alexander was born in 356 BC in Macedonia, a small kingdom in northern Greece. His father, Philip II, was already a great king, but Alexander was something different. At 16, he commanded his first army. At 18, he won his first major battle. His teacher was Aristotle, the greatest philosopher of the ancient world. Aristotle taught him science, philosophy, and medicine, but the book Alexander loved most was the Iliad, the story of Achilles. Achilles, the greatest warrior who ever lived, who chose glory over long life. Alexander decided he would be Achilles. He would conquer the world, or die trying. In 334 BC, Alexander crossed into Asia with 37,000 soldiers. Against him stood the Persian Empire, the largest empire in history, 500 years old, 70 million people, unlimited resources. Alexander destroyed it in 10 years. First, Asia Minor, then Syria, then Egypt. The Egyptians called him a god. He founded a city and named it after himself, Alexandria. Then he turned east. At the Battle of Gaugamela in 331 BC, he faced the Persian king Darius III. Darius had 1 million soldiers. Alexander had 47,000. Alexander won. He entered Persepolis, the capital of the Persian Empire, and burned it to the ground. Persia was gone, but Alexander didn't stop. He kept going east through Afghanistan, through the Hindu Kush Mountains in winter. His soldiers were exhausted. They had been marching for 8 years, but Alexander pushed them further. Then he reached India, and he won there too. At the Battle of the Hydaspes in 326 BC, he defeated the Indian king Porus, who had war elephants. Alexander had never seen an elephant in battle before. He still won. He was 29 years old. He had conquered more land than any human being in history, and that's when it happened. Standing at the Hyphasis River in India, Alexander looked east. Beyond that river, more kingdoms, more land, more glory. He wanted to keep going, but his soldiers refused. For the first time in 10 years, they said no. They had been marching for a decade away from their families, through deserts and mountains and monsoons. They had followed him to the edge of the known world. They would not go further. Alexander was furious. He locked himself in his tent for 3 days. He refused to eat, refused to see anyone. He waited for his soldiers to change their minds. They didn't. And for the first time in his life, Alexander the Great had to turn back. He ordered a retreat. And according to historians, he wept. Not because he lost a battle, but because he realized something devastating. The world had an end, and he had reached it. There was nothing left. Alexander's tears at the Hyphasis River are one of the most psychologically revealing moments in ancient history. Here was a man who had everything: power, wealth, fame, an empire stretching from Greece to India. And he was broken, not by defeat, but by the absence of more to achieve. This is what psychologists today call arrival fallacy, the belief that achieving your goal will bring happiness. Alexander had achieved every goal he ever set, and it wasn't enough. Aristotle had tried to warn him. True happiness, Aristotle said, comes from virtue and wisdom, not conquest. Alexander had studied philosophy, but he had chosen Achilles over Aristotle, glory over wisdom, and at the Hyphasis River, he discovered the price. After the retreat, Alexander was never the same. He drank more, He made worse decisions. He killed his best friend Clytus in a drunken rage. He became paranoid, isolated 3 years after the Hyphasis, and he died in Babylon. He was 32 years old. No one knows exactly how. Some say fever, some say poison, some say a broken spirit. The greatest conqueror in history, dead at 32. His empire divided immediately after. Within 50 years, it was gone. Alexander the Great achieved more than any human being in recorded history, and it destroyed him. The lesson isn't that ambition is bad. The lesson is that ambition without purpose is a prison. Alexander conquered the world, but he never answered the question, then what? Aristotle had the answer. Alexander never listened. History remembers Alexander as the greatest conqueror who ever lived. But maybe the more honest title is the man who had everything and still wasn't satisfied. If this story made you think, subscribe. We cover the human moments behind the history books. And comment below, do you think Alexander was happy, even for a moment? I'll see you in the next one.